Welcome to Fulham Fix, an episode, someone close to my heart. The man probably responsible for getting me my job here at Fulham for a number of reasons. One, because, he called it a day, had to retire at some point, was done with, I think in his own words, January and February matches are just, they're too cold, it's too tough. But also he did say, give him the job. He's ready, which I will forever love him.
What he said, it was like Ferguson and Moyes. He was like, what you got to do now is get behind our new stadium announcer.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
That's literally it. Yeah. And the episode you're about to see, not sure how much of it makes the edit. There's some great jokes, but it's always lovely catching up with him, though, isn't it?
Yeah, you shouldn't have made those jokes, actually. That was out of order.
I was very quiet.
Right, so if there's one person that's missed at Fulham Football Club over the last 10 years, someone that cannot be replaced, someone that's replacement might be punctuating that void every single week with his voice, it is David Diddy Hamilton. Welcome to Fulham Fix.
Thank you very much.
Just before we start, do you know what I really miss? Ivan.
Yeah, go on, mate. Yeah, go on. What?
Ladies and gentlemen, it is showtime. Yeah. Would you mind, before we start, just saying that down the microphone so we can hear it one more time?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime. Please welcome the teams of Manchester United and Fulham.
Yeah. Now, that's how you do it.
All right, I'm right here.
That's how you do it.
No, but nowadays, what you do nowadays is you make a lot of noise.
Right.
Well,
it's not showtime anymore. You make a lot of noise.
It's Craven Cottage makes some noise. Sorry, do you guys want me to do Craven Cottage make some noise? Don't worry about it. That's fine. No, it's fine. No, it's all good, man. Whatever. No, I'm joking.
First question to you, actually, Ivan, is did you ever consider using, ladies and gentlemen, it is showtime?
No.
Right,
it's irreplaceable.
Because no one can do that.
Everyone always said to me, big shoes to fill. They did.
Actually, to this day, they're only size 7.
I think it was only you that said that, following it up with, but that's genuine. They were. And I thought in my head, I'm like, there's no way I can do that. So I can't touch what you've done.
I think you've done extremely well. The difference between you and me is that you actually got things right.
Sometimes.
I remember once announcing a goal by, who was the guy who played for us? His name was Johnson. Andy Johnson, yeah. And I said, I was there in the dugout, which was our place at the time, and right in the far corner at the Putney end, he scored what looked like a great goal. So I said, ladies and gentlemen, Fulham goal scorer, number so-and-so, Andy Johnson. Yeah. And there's nothing, no applause. So I suddenly realised, obviously it's not a goal. And as I look down the line, I can see the linesman has waved his flag for offside, Yeah. So I think, what do I do? So I just said, oh, sorry, wishful thinking.
I mean...
And it did get me off the hook. But it's easily done, and it wasn't the best vantage point. And sometimes, you had people standing in front of you that made it very difficult.
Yeah.
And I remember we were playing... Graham Souness was the manager of... who was maybe Blackburn. Maybe Blackburn Rovers. And we were winning about 2-0, and he was very off, and he got Dean Saunders, who's the most enormous bloke, to come and stand right in front of me, so that I couldn't see what was going on. Oh. And I said to the fourth official, and the fourth official was too
scared.
Yeah, to do anything about it. And this man Mountain stood there in front of me all the time, and I just couldn't see anything at all.
I did have a bit of time in the dugout. I only moved out of the dugout COVID. And then I haven't really been invited back in the dugout. I'm kind of at the side.
Where are you now? Exactly?
Literally right by. So we're right next to the Fulham bench, but in the first set of seats. But I remember thinking I'm pretty much an expert on fourth officials' backsides. Because that's all I see. You were literally, because it used to be down a bit. Yeah. I mean, they raised it. When we eventually got into the Premier League, they changed it.
Yes.
But because it was like a sloped down dugout, you were bum height when you were sitting down.
Well, even worse for me, because I'm not the tallest person in the world. But we did actually have one fourth official who farted in the dugout. Yeah.
That's never nice.
He was quite a well-known referee.
Oh, really?
And he invited me to an open day of his down in Gloucestershire, so it gives you a clue as to who it might be. And I went along and I told the audience what he'd done.
Oh, really?
And he said, afterwards, he said, you shouldn't have said that. He said, my boss is here. So I said, well, there's no crime. It's
No,
illegal. It's not illegal to
you
break
farted in the dugout, It smells so good, but...
No. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, any idea who that fourth is?
I'd have to smell it. David, I want to go back to, because your history of Fulham is there's multitudes to your connections with Fulham Football Club, right? Yeah. So to take people back that maybe have been coming to Fulham in the last 10 years, younger listeners, like when does it start with you at Fulham Football Club? Because you lived near Putney Bridge, right?
Yes, I lived just by Putney Bridge Station. My mother did. She lived in a flat there, Ranelagh Gardens Mansions. And so I first went to Fulham when I was probably about 9 or 10, so that would be in the late 40s.
Right.
And then later on, I was a director in the 70s, in the days when Ernie Clay was the chairman. And for about 2 years, I was a director. And what I discovered from that was the less you know about the running of a football club, the more fun it is. You have a lot more fun as a spectator than you do as one of the people running it.
Yeah.
And there wasn't much money at the time. It was very tough times. Round about that time, we had George Best and Rodney Marsh playing for Fulham.
Probably more in that team as well.
And showboating. I mean, we weren't going to win anything. We weren't going anywhere. But what we were doing really was we were just entertaining it was entertaining the public. And there was the famous match on the big match which was shown on a Sunday afternoon when they tackled each other, although they were on the same team.
Famous moment,
And that now would probably be almost a sackable offence. But in those days, football was played, a lot of players had a smile on their face, and it was a lot of fun to it, so it was great times. And there was one time when Ernie Clay said to me, I put this in my book, which we haven't mentioned
let's get it up there to this camera. It's your new book.
This is my autobiography.
We'll plug it before and after as well for you, David.
We promise.
The Long and Winding Road. And this story is actually in the book. When I was a director, Ernie Clay, who was the chairman, said, "Now you mustn't fraternise with the players." And I was very friendly with a lot of the players, including Les Strong, who we all know is one of the loungers now. And he was the Fulham captain. And Strongy said to me one day, he said, "Since you've become a director, you've become very stuck up." He said, "You don't talk to us anymore." I said, "Well, the chairman," so he said, "Stuff him." He said, "We're your mates." He said, and, just remember that.
Yeah.
So we had a lunchtime kickoff at Crystal Palace, a 12 o'clock kickoff. And I had a drink with Les after the match at the bar at Crystal Palace. And I said, as it happens, Les, you had a good game. So he said, "It's funny you should say that." He said, "Because Bestie and I were out in the last night. And to be honest with you," he said, "we were still when we kicked off at 12 o'clock.
Wow.
So I said, "Well, as a director of the club, my advice to you is this. If you can play like that on a Saturday afternoon, make that your regular training routine on a Friday night."
Oh, I thought you were going to say, imagine how good you'd be if you weren't drunk. But no, your advice was...
Well, they were probably better drunk,
exactly.
More confidence.
Yeah, exactly.
But how things have changed. Of course, later on, when Tigana came along, all the players were blood tested regularly. So if anybody... There was no alcohol,
There's no ketchup.
No.
Yeah, not even
wasn't it? They were like banning all sorts of
I mean,
things.
things have changed so much. I mean, you see players now coming off the coach, headphones on, not talking. In the days that I remember, the players used to come to the matches on buses, and the supporters were earning more money than they were. And there was a great character who played for Fulham called Tosh Chamberlain, who older supporters will remember. And the kickabout before the match in those days was about 5 minutes. They'd come out, have a few shots at the goalkeeper, and they'd go off. And Tosh used to come out with a in his hand.
Well, at Cottage, in the cottage. Wow, he'd walk out of a cottage.
He'd run out of the cottage with a on,
Yeah,
that's although we weren't far off with Tigana. We had the joy of having Sylvain Legwinski on here, who said he used to leave training. Chuffing away. I mean, he's obviously the French way, but he was
Legwinski would smoke.
Yeah, Legwinski would smoke on the way, when he was leaving training. So.
Oh, really? What a sublime team that was under Tigana, with particularly the French players and Steve Malbranc and wonderful. And we played such. You see, Fulham had wonderful managers. When you look back and you think about, Kevin Keegan was a wonderful manager. I'll tell you a little story about Kevin Keegan. I used to walk my dog in Richmond Park, and at that particular time, the pre-season training for the players was a run round Richmond Park, which is quite a long run, and it's very hilly. Yeah. So I'm walking my dog one day, and who do I see? Kevin Keegan out front, several years after he'd retired as a player, running the players round the park. Now, if players have respect for a manager, there couldn't be any more respect than that. This is a guy saying, okay, I'll do it with you, and this is how you do it. And he was the pacemaker,
That's incredible.
Fantastic. And at that time, you're obviously the stadium announcer, as we would call it now. And how long have you been a stadium announcer? Were you
I was the man on the mic. I was his warm-up man and his predecessor.
And like I said, don't you forget it. I'm joking.
18 years.
18
years.
Was Keegan your first? Would have been your first season, would it?
Mickey Adams.
Was it Mickey Adams?
Yes. And my spot where I did the announcing originally was in the cottage, and there was a little box on the edge of the cottage on the balcony, and it was a terrible view because the Hammersmith end was such a long way away. How are you going to identify players from there?
Sure.
And no helper, very much on my own.
Oh right.
And then the next season they said to me, "Will you?" What was I doing then? Oh, initially, I just did the halftime entertainment. That was it. That's the first thing I did. Mm-hmm. And then the next season, they said, will you do the announcing as well? And then the season after that, they said, will you co-host one of the lounges with George Cohen? And of course, that was a great pleasure and privilege because George was so knowledgeable about football, and one of the players would come over, or one or more of the players would come over after the match, and some of George's pals, ex-players of his would go, and the lounge was full of football celebrities. And George again was such a bit like Roy Hodgson that you've been talking to. George was such a gentleman, such a lovely man, and so knowledgeable about the game. I mean, what he didn't know wasn't worth knowing. So
you just mentioned a few names there. I mean, you'd be best placed to answer this more than anyone really. Is there something different that separates a Fulham hero, Fulham? Would you be able to describe what a Fulham fan would be like, or personality?
A Fulham fan?
Yeah, is there something different?
Well, yes, there was always a big difference between Fulham supporters and Chelsea supporters.
Right.
Although they were only, about a mile away. It was a very sort of different breed of people. I like to think that Fulham supporters were generally more knowledgeable, more intelligent, possibly older generally. Not now, probably a whole lot of new ones have come along. Well, there are exceptions, of course.
always. Yeah, that's fantastic.
But and I think the other thing too was that we were more gentlemanly. We were very welcoming to away supporters. I remember one season when Norwich had been relegated, and they were relegated at Craven Cottage.
It was a 5 or 6-0 or something, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a big win for us. And their supporters were wonderful. And when our players came out and did a lap of honour, the Norwich supporters stayed by and applauded them. And I said, we're sorry that you've been relegated, but we hope to see you back in the Premier League very soon. And that was Fulham's way of doing it. Not everybody did that. Some places, were very tribal and not very welcoming to away supporters. But we, particularly at that time, going back to them, we made them very welcome too, and everybody loved to come to Craven Cottage.
Yeah. I mean, you were setting the tone for that, weren't you? Because you had a voice of that sort of, and Ivan must feel the same thing, that sort of sense of responsibility.
Well, we had a hooligan after that who lowered the tone of the. No, only joking.
How dare you? There's a couple of incredible. You got to tell me if this is true or not, because this sounds absolutely incredible. This is true. So. Obviously, you've been seeing us, like you said, since the 40s. Is it true that during your Radio 1 days, you actually chartered a plane to get to the semi-final?
Yes, I did.
That's extraordinary.
I was on the air until 5 o'clock at Radio 1.
Right.
And we had a 7:30 kickoff at Main Road, Manchester.
Right. Is this the famous semi-final of the 75?
This was the cup final replay, I think. Against the first game was at Sheffield Wednesday. So who was it against? I'm trying to remember now. Birmingham City, I think.
Okay.
I think it was Birmingham City.
I think you might be right. There were a lot of replays involved, I seem to remember, on the run-up, wasn't there?
A lot of... do you know, when we got to Wembley that year, every match was won away from home.
Wow.
Do you know that?
Oh, I didn't know that.
We didn't win one game at home.
No.
And there was one series of matches against Hull City where in those days you played until you got a winner, and we played them 4 times. We played home twice, away twice, 4 times.
Wow.
So there was a record number of matches to get to Wembley.
Right.
But coming back to the plane, what happened was that I came off there at 5 o'clock. There was no way you could get there by car. No way you could get by train or plane.
Yeah.
So with my son and a bunch of pals, we hired a Piper Aztec, and we went from Northolt. We flew up from Northolt, and we got a pal of mine who was a director at Manchester City, picked us up from Ringway Airport, and we were in the ground 10 minutes after kickoff.
Come on.
Well in time to see John Mitchell's winning goal that got us to Wembley. And we flew back in the Piper Aztec, drinking champagne with the sick bags, wearing the sick bags on our heads. Really? Celebratory hats.
Oh, brilliant. And you're back on the radio the next day?
Back on the radio next day.
Come on.
Bit more wobbly.
Crowing, of course, about the result the day before.
Yeah, I bet you were. Fantastic.
Am I right in thinking as well, you kept a diary as well of the FA Cup run?
I think so, yes, pretty well. I remember the story about when we got to the cup final, and Peter Miller, the giant goalkeeper, had been wonderful, in all the rounds on the way there, played out of his skin. And unfortunately, Alan Taylor scored 2 goals on the big day.
So how much is Fulham mentioned in this book?
Well,
I know you said it's your biography, but
there are
it's
2 chapters in the book. There are about 24 chapters, 2 chapters on Fulham. One is the time of when I was a director, and one is the time of when I was the man on the mic. But there are lots of other... lots of other references to Fulham as well. Like, when I first went, I told you earlier, when I was a boy, and, it keeps coming up all over the place. Obviously, it was has always been a very big part of my life. And also, I played at Fulham in a few testimonial matches. Right. And the biggest thrill...
What position?
Number 7.
Oh, number 7. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Flying winger.
All right, nice. Yeah.
And the biggest thrill was to play in Alan Mullery's testimonial.
Wow.
And Alan Mullery rang me and said, I've got the England World Cup squad from 1966, bar 2. He said, and instead of inviting a couple of other pros, I'm inviting you and Jimmy Tarbuck. Would you like to play
in a team
in the England team?
Sorry, what?
Wow.
So how was that, so I said, well, actually, something rather good on telly that night.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Sorry,
anyway,
you were in the England.
Yeah, we ran out in the. It was just about 10 years after, so it's probably about 1976, and we ran out in the red and white strip.
Yeah, that was cool.
With Jack Charlton, Bobby Charlton,
Nobby Stiles,
Gordon Banks. I think Nobby Stiles was playing. Yes,
yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, and there was a press cutting in the Fulham Chronicle which said England scored. I've just got this cut out at home, and it said England scored first when Jack Charlton gave a fine ball to David Hamilton, who crossed, and Bobby Charlton rocketed it into the back of the net. And so if you just look at that, people say, when did you play for England? Well, it was Craven Cottage, 1976.
Wasn't you quite a good footballer then, were you? In your
I actually...
You're pinging it. So,
I actually joined them on a free transfer from Subbuteo.
Excellent.
We talked about one final, a famous final in Fulham's history, but another, obviously, which you were heavily involved in another way, not on the pitch, was the Europa League final.
Yes.
Take us there, because we were all there. It's really blurry memory because it was so visceral and exciting, but you ended up being elevated quite high in the air.
Yes. I was just talking to Roy Hodgson about that before we came on air. What happened was that they had the idea that I would warm up the crowd on a cherry picker, high up on the top, level with the top tier.
Yeah.
And
it's high?
Very high.
Yeah.
And I've never liked heights, Anyway, we're in this cage, which is open at one end. And there are 2 people in the cage with me. One is the operator of the cherry picker, and the other one is a cameraman who's panning between me and the crowd. Right. So last thing to do before the match is announce the team. And I said to Roy, last thing I said, and Fulham manager Roy Hodgson. Of course, everybody's there. Whoa, like this. And I said to the two Germans, neither of whom spoke any English, I said, okay, let's go down now. So I think they understood that. And they pressed, the operator pressed this button, and the cage shook like this, went like this. And I looked down, and I thought, I don't think we've moved. Yeah. So I said to him, we don't seem to have moved. And he went, so pressed it again, and it shook even more like this. And I'm looking at this, open bit at the end there. Anyway, the crowd are now getting restless, thinking, is he going, or is he going to be here throughout the match? Because if he is, we're not going to see much of the game because he's right in front of us. Eventually, it's operated from the ground. Somebody operates it from the ground, and we finally go down. Yeah. And now I have to get off it. And if you remember, it was a very cold night. Yeah, it was. It was pouring with rain, so I was wet, I was cold, I was shaking from both the fear of the thing and the cold, and now I have to walk in front of all the Fulham supporters all the way around like this. The legs have gone completely, I actually had visions that what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to get a ladder of some kind.
Absolutely not.
And I'm going to have to walk down on this. How do you walk down on a ladder when your legs have gone?
You don't. You stay up there, you watch the game. Stay up there as long as you need. I'm not doing
well, that. I only got down about 2 or 3 minutes before kickoff, just in time to do my pre-match thing. Yeah. Were you there?
No, I wasn't.
No, I was there. I was there. Yeah. Because I remember it was you, and there was another Athletic Madrid had someone as well, didn't they?
Yes.
So it was like a sort of back and forth between the two.
They had one at their end, and they had a wonderful song, and somebody
and a cherry picker that worked.
Yeah, and a cherry picker that worked. And he was God knows how many years younger than me, and he was down on the ground, and he was fine, and waving to the crowd, and this terrific song. And then somebody came up with a really duff song with us, not our usual song. Yeah. And everybody's going, why are we playing this?
Yeah. Is it? I've got a feeling. I got a feeling.
Oh God, really?
Tonight's gonna be.
Oh God, we use that. We should have been Viva Royal Fulham, surely.
It wasn't anything to do with you, was it?
Yeah, no, nothing to do with me.
No,
you were there.
I was there, but I'm not responsible for the music.
Wow. You weren't in any way responsible for the music.
I very much hope not. No,
I don't think you'll find anyone here at Fulham that will admit to being responsible for the choice of that song.
I don't think so.
And I think no one's taken credit.
It certainly wasn't me, but of course people would think it was because they always think you picked the music, Yeah. But anyway, never mind. It was great to be there, and I flew back with the team, and of course. The atmosphere was very flat because
you whipped the team.
Yeah, flew back on the same plane. Flew out with them, flew back with them, and I love flying, don't you? It's very hard on the arms, isn't it? But okay. Can I tell you another fun thing?
Yeah, please do, man.
Ivan will love this.
Go on.
In the early days.
Yeah, go on.
In the early days, we were able to put a lot of comedy into the announcing, and then after a while, it all became very, very serious,
didn't it?
Yeah, well, he's
overly dry.
Told to be serious now, but we had a lot of fun. And there was Simon Morgan's testimonial. Simon Morgan, legend. Possibly the last Fulham player to have a testimonial because they earn so much now. And I was on the committee, and we raised about 100 grand for him, which he was very happy to have. Yeah, and I realised that players now are earning that in a week. Yeah. But anyway, in his last season, Simon was injured and he didn't play very much. He had been the Fulham captain. Yeah. But he came on for the last match of the season as a substitute in the last 15 minutes. Right. And in those days, we used to have a man of the match, and the man of the match was always picked by the sponsors, who hadn't got a bloody clue, frankly. Yeah. And every week I'd be handed this piece of paper, and I said, are they at the match? Are they at the same game?
Said they've seen the same
game. Are
game,
these people serious? I mean, you want me to say this to the crowd? Because I can tell you this is going to be greeted with derision. So if you've got to say it, ladies and gentlemen, the Fulham FC man of the match is, and people would go, way. So it's a complete joke. So anyway, the last match, Simon's testimonial, and I'm given this piece of paper, which is the usual joke. So I thought, sod that, I'm not doing that. So I actually made him the man of the match. Now, all he did was he came on for 15 minutes and he took a throw in.
Good throw,
but it was his testimonial season. It was his last game, and everybody loved the humour of it. You know? And I said, ladies and gentlemen, the Fulham man of the match, Simon Morgan, the place. The place erupted.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So you didn't tell anyone you were going to do that?
No, I just did it.
No, like
and
that.
In those days,
I could definitely
you could
get away
do
with
that.
But
what then? Everything became very scripted.
Sure.
And I'll tell you another thing that happened after matches. But sometimes people would say to me, after the match, you've got to plug the next games.
Oh yeah,
yes,
games.
we've heard that.
So Fulham get beaten 3-0 by Manchester City. Everybody's off. Everybody's going home. Do they honestly really want a commercial? You know. So I didn't do it. I said, well, why didn't you do that? I said, because it's not what people want to hear. You know, as they're walking out of the ground, you've been stuffed 3-0. They don't want to hear you selling them something. They just want to go home, lick their wounds and forget it. So a lot of it you could do by feel. But as time went by, you could see more and more that was not going to be accepted.
But if it's you know, certainly there's certain stuff I have to.
No, your stuff's too scripted for me, to be honest with you.
Do you ever say, you like the early stuff?
Do you ever say stuff and you think, I'd rather not be saying that?
Oh man, alive! If we're going to do this 100%, recently I had something I had to legally say.
You've had a bad one, haven't you?
The Liverpool Carabao semi-final. Yes, and I had to say, which I think is a very nice, gracious thing to say, but I didn't want to. Congratulations, after the final score is this, congratulations to Liverpool making it to, you know, the Carabao Cup final.
Which I don't think is
which was met with boos, and I tell you, I mean, I know you're not on social media, but my God, the backlash on social media. And I thought, do they think I spontaneously think of stuff to say? Sorry, I love you all, I love like everyone, but I remember at that time thinking, I don't know.
In your judgment, David, would that be a bad thing to say? Congratulations to Liverpool.
Well, as I said to you earlier, we were very gracious to visiting supporters.
And it wasn't
no,
like
but
they thrashed us.
especially when they'd lost, but not so much when they had won. I think I would be like Ivan. I think I would be thinking, I don't think I want to say this. Because you know how it's going to go down.
Yeah.
And it's not going to go down well.
But like you said, it's a different time, and I know stuff's like pre-agreed by both teams, the way you sort of do it, and I think, you know, that I knew I had to say, but I didn't, it was met with I was quite taken aback about how many people thought maybe that I spontaneously come up with.
Well, the thing is that you have to leave the ground in one piece, don't you? I know. So
I do. I had to get smuggled down the river that time.
Once people start attacking you, that's when you get a bit worried.
Exactly.
But it's part of it, isn't it? You know, and I was as disappointed as everyone else not to make the final, but.
There have been some great clangers and cock-ups by announcers in various different grounds around the country. And there was one announcer who announced a player called Pratt from a visiting team. Yeah. And he said, he's a right Pratt.
Oh man, it is a fear of mine. I don't know. You said
this is turning into a stadium announcer of council.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry, man. Yeah, I'm done.
Have you while you've been doing the job? Because I'd like to think you have. Have you had any cups or clangers?
One that still haunts me to this day.
Go on.
Yeah.
And the wonderful Kit Simons, who had been our manager, know and love him. He's absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
At the time, and you'll appreciate this, I was doing a breakfast show on Heart.
Yes.
And, you're getting up at 3, then I was coming to the ground to do certain games, and there was an advert for, I think, a sofa company called Simmons. Simply
I was there. I was there that
Irresistible.
day. You called him Simmons.
Yes.
I was there
because
that
I
day.
had this jingle, we played it every day on this breakfast show, every ad break, and it would haunt me. And it was just one of those things where I just casually went, Kit Simmons. And it was only afterwards I'm like, oh my God. And it haunts me. I messaged him and I said, mate, I literally, bear in mind, he'd been our man. That was the only time I've wanted the ground to swallow.
Can I make you feel a bit better?
Please do.
He once told me off for mentioning him in one of my books and putting a D in his name and calling him Simons with a D.
Right.
And how many times had I seen his name? Just these mistakes are easily made.
Oh, yeah,
of course, I knew he was a Simons and not a Simons, which is a more common name.
Yeah.
But listen, we've all been there.
That was it. That was. I think
if that's the worst mistake you ever make, you won't have.
Hey, listen. Write in. Let me know. What's the worst thing that I have ever done in the last? I don't know. I think that's the worst. That's
worst
the one
thing you've ever
me.
done is have me on your podcast.
Or maybe was that the worst thing? I think
Absolutely
that might be the best
not. It's
thing
been a joy.
done.
And before we let you go, Dave, the thing that's just occurred to me we need to do is you to name your all-time Fulham team because you've been going since the 40s.
Well, the whole team.
Yeah, you've got to give us
a team from goalkeeper. Yeah.
I remember doing this once in a fanzine or the program or something like that. I can't remember who they all were now. Who did I say was the greatest goalkeeper? Maybe Edwin van der Sar, perhaps?
Oh, come on.
I think it's a very common one. So we're going to write these down. All right. So we've got goalkeeper, in goal.
Van der Sar's a great one.
Diddy's starting 11.
Some of them may be older ones, I've got to have George Cohen at fullback, right back, George Cohen.
Who's next to George then?
And let me think who else. I've got to have Alan Mullery, of course. Two great England players. I've got to have Johnny Haynes, of course, up front.
Haynes up front.
Who would I have up front with him? Maybe Louis Sahar.
Oh, come on.
I mean,
Haynes and
Sahar.
I think I've got to have Steed Malbranck in there.
Yeah, I love that.
Any idea where he is?
I've got to have Les Barrett, who was my inspiration when I played for the Showbiz 11. He was the archetypal winger, played in the Cup final in 75. Got down the line like a greyhound, got the crosses over for the big man in the middle. Les Barrett.
Les Barrett. Yeah. So we've got two central midfielders would be helpful.
Two central midfielders.
Otherwise we're going to get run through.
Yeah. Should we put Danny Murphy in there? He'd like that, wouldn't he? Danny would like that. He was part of that team that got to Hamburg.
Yeah.
And do we need another midfielder as well?
Another central midfielder. You could have Lee Clark, Sean Davis, Den Bailey, Polinia, back in the day, who would have had? Who'd have been?
We've got Alan Mullery.
Mullery.
We've got Alan Mullery. He's a midfield player.
Mullery and Murphy in centre midfield. Fantastic.
What a midfield.
So we're missing. So I tell you what, we're missing.
We need centre half.
Fullback and two centre backs.
Hangeland. Big centre half.
And we need another centre back as well.
We need another centre back as well.
Another centre back, another fullback.
Another fullback. So many.
We got Cohen. You could have Finnan. You could have
Steve Finnan. He was a good.
Finnan's a good one.
Really good. Yeah. Sasha Rita, I always liked as well. Right back, wasn't he? Sasha Rita, right back.
Oh, the greats that we've had. Who was Arna? What was Arna Risa? He was.
Arna Risa.
He was a good.
That is not a name. I thought you were going to say that.
Arna
Risa's in.
Well, he was a good player, wasn't he?
Yeah, fantastic.
He was a left back, I think, if you like.
And then one centre back. We're missing centre back to put on Hangeland.
Hangeland, yeah.
So you could have a Coleman or a Simons or a
Morgan. We could stick Simons.
Aaron Hughes.
The Thames barrier, right?
Aaron Hughes and Hangeland together were such great players, and Hughes was a vastly underrated player.
Unbelievable.
So, can you do me a favour, David?
Irish international.
As if we're about to start a game.
Yeah.
Could you read out this team as if you're announcing the Fulham team from 1 to 11?
And the all-time great team. Oh, it's gone.
Name that as if it's the Fulham 11.
And the all-time great Fulham team is Van der Sar, Cohen, Risa, Hangeland, Hughes, Mullery, Murphy, Malbranck, Barrett, Haynes, and Louis Sahar.
Come on!
Damn, he's good.
I got a tear.
It's showtime. It's showtime. Come on!
Tear in my eye.
I'll get my coat.
Let's hear it for the boys.
Come on, Fulham.
One more thing. Where can everyone get that?
Yes,
Your biography.
you can buy this at all good booksellers. You can get it on Amazon.
There we go.
Yeah,
and it's the story of my life. It's not just football. There's a lot of radio in there as well, a lot of television, and a few. It's warts and all,
Yeah.
And it's.
I can imagine.
It's quite hot. Some of it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. I've got the story of the manager who said break his fucking leg.
Yeah.
But I've actually given him a pseudonym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the name that I've called him by is Colin. And that is an anagram of his name.
Nickel.
Colin. Don't say it because he might be upset. So keep it a secret, like it is in the book, and let people by the book and read between the lines. But there are lots of secrets of the dugout in there.
Nice.
Right.
And I've got our favourite manager,
Yes.
who is Stuart Pearce.
Yes.
Great.
And the reason was one of his players, he gave him a and he came over to the dugout and he said to us, "I've tried being nice, but it doesn't work."
Brilliant.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, that was
so we
great.
loved him.
Yeah.
And there's a funny
apologetic,
story about Ray Wilkins in the dugout as well,
Great. All right.
sending the message to the referee. And also there is the story of Colin. Say
go.
no more.
Ivan, good read for you. I know you like reading a script, so get cracking on that. And we missed you, David.
So, jokes aside, because you were joking, right? You were joking? Tell me you were joking.
I actually feel guilty, but I think I was under too much pressure to sort of like throw you under the bus. I feel like
I mean, I'm going to probably mention it to HR a little bit. But I've got to admit, like, the era when I started coming to Fulham, hearing him do that team at the end in that voice, it just takes me right back. He is the voice of Fulham, man.
James has just said that it's like it makes you feel Tuesday night at Craven Cottage, and that's exactly what it is. I can sort of feel the cold and the fog in the air when you hear that voice.
Yeah. And what do you feel when you hear my voice?
I feel when I hear your voice, oh no, that's all the time we got for now. See you for next one.